I love time trialling. I've done hundreds of them over the years, and I've even managed to win a few. It's a cycling discipline that I'm really passionate about and keen to share with others. So in this video, I'm going to give you a bunch of tips and things I've learned to help improve your performance. And I'm also, at the moment, trying to train to ride a 10-mile time trial in 18 minutes. I'm going to be posting more content about that and how I hopefully achieve it. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you subscribe.
First, select your bike. Now, fancy time trial bikes like this are, well, they're unbelievably rapid and they're great fun to ride, but they are really expensive. The good news is you don't need one. You can do a time trial on any perfectly good road bike. In the UK, we have road bike categories specific for cycling time trial events, which is great news. But in any event, you can just turn up on a road bike, and a lot of the time, people on road bikes often beat people on time trial bikes, which is a great feeling. And you don't have to be racing for the win. Yes, these kind of bikes are faster, but on a road bike, you can just race against yourself and just try and get a PB. That's one of the things that I love about time trialing, because often I'm not good enough to be racing for the win, but I'm just trying to do the best ride that I can do. And remember, if it is your first ever time trial, you're guaranteed a PB.
Tip 1, position is absolutely everything. Oversized pulley wheel systems and ceramic bearings make a bit of difference and they're cool, but they really are the absolute cherry on top of the cake. Only do those once you've done absolutely everything else, because on a cost per watt basis, they're pretty terrible. The biggest gain you can make by far is your position and being able to hold it. Now, time trial bikes are faster because they have deeper, more aerodynamic tube shapes. But the biggest reason why they're faster is because the geometry of them allows you to get into a more aerodynamic position like this and rotate your hips forward. It's not as simple as just jumping on the bike and expecting to perform in an aero position though. Most riders find it difficult to get the same amount of power out when they're holding a position like this. So you have to absolutely practice doing it and riding in the position as much as you can. Something I'd recommend as well is, if your power is lower in a TC position, make sure that you don't hold yourself to the same standards as you would in an upright climbing position. If you've got like a 5-minute interval to do, don't try and do the power that you would do while on a road bike. Adjust it, make it a bit more of a manageable and realistic target. The more you do it, your power will improve and you'll get better at pushing the big watts in an aero tuck. Tip number 2, Recon. Now, before the race has even happened, I'd suggest trying to get out and ride the course if you've not ridden it before and do a Recon ride. Reason for that is because the time trialing is often won or lost by seconds or even a second. And by riding a course or racing it before, riders often go several seconds quicker the second time they ride it. This is because you get crucial information such as how fast you can go round the corners, where the corners are, hazards that might be in the road like potholes or things like that, but also how long particular sections are, so you know how hard to push on them, because then you often get a little rest. Say you have a drag that's 5 minutes long, but then if you've reconned the course, you know that then you have, say, a minute of soft pedaling as you go down the other side, so you can better pace your effort. I'll get onto more detail in pacing in a minute.
For next level recon, I don't just recon the course, I do virtual recon too. My favourite app to do this is something called mywindsock.com. They haven't sponsored this video, it's just something I genuinely use and find really useful. It allows you to model the course of your time trial, and based upon the weather forecast for the event, you can then put in metrics such as the power that you're going to try and hold, and then it can help you come up with pacing strategies based upon that. So you have good information about where you need to push harder in order to go as fast as possible. Tip 3, set yourself a schedule. So when you enter a time trial, there's a start sheet that gets published and you're given a designated start time. Once you know that, you can work backwards from it so that you know exactly where you need to be and what you need to be doing in the hours before it. So 3 hours before, I tend to have a large amount of carbohydrate, either porridge or some rice, something like that. That really works for me. And then once I get to the event, you allow plenty of time for various things, such as signing on, picking up your race numbers, making sure that you can get your shoes on, your skin suit on, your bike tyres pumped up, stuff like that. While I'm doing that, I tend to have a water bottle with me with some beta fuel in it so that I can just keep sipping that to keep my glycogen stores topped up. 30 minutes before the event is when I start my warm-up. Now, at this point, I'll also have maybe a banana or something. This is a good time to have a caffeine gel if you take caffeine. I personally don't take caffeine before a race, but for a lot of people, it is an ergogenic aid that makes you faster. So at 30 minutes to go, start warm up, have some carbs or some caffeine, and then my warm up is typically 20 minutes long. And then I leave myself a good 10 minutes to get to the start and be relaxed and then start the event and get going. Now, I used to actually write this down as a list with times on it on my phone. And you often see a lot of pros do this, and soigneurs do this when pros are doing time trials in big stage races. But now I find that I've been doing it so many years and I'm so dialed in and used to it, I can sort of just do it without writing a list. But if you're a newbie, I'd recommend, write a list. Tip number 4 is all about pacing. But the first thing to be aware of is selecting the right gear for the start. You begin from a standing start, so you need to be in a gear that you can quickly get off the line. If you're in too hard a gear, you'll be really sluggish as you try and get on top of it, and this will often cost you a couple of seconds, which, as we've mentioned, can be the difference between winning and losing. Off the line, I tend to push pretty hard to try and get up to speed as quick as possible, usually for about 10 seconds, going harder than what is my race pace. After that, I quickly settle in and ride at what is my target power. Now, it's important that you don't try and go too hard in the first 5 minutes. It's so tempting. The adrenaline is coursing through your body. You feel great in the first 5 minutes. Everyone feels great in the first 5 minutes. And so often people get it wrong. They think, nah, I'm feeling amazing, I'm on a flyer today, only to then die 1,000 deaths in the rest of the race. Pacing is an art, and one of the best things that you can learn to do is what's known as a negative split, where you go slightly easier in the first half of the race and then absolutely empty the tank in the second half. I've achieved my best ever 20-minute power outputs by doing this kind of strategy. And Bradley Wiggins, one of the greatest time trialists of all time, was an absolute master of this particular pacing strategy. However, it's not always the fastest thing to do. For example, if the first half of your time trial was into a headwind and the second half was a tailwind, you'd gain more time by pushing harder into the headwind. The same would apply if you were racing on an uphill in the first half and a downhill in the second half. As a general rule of thumb, you stand to gain more time by pushing harder when the conditions are slower. The next tip is use photos and videos. Now, these are incredibly useful for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's great for social media and dating profiles. I mean, who isn't going to swipe right for this? When you're at a race, there might be event photographers, or you could just ask friends and family to photo you or video you during the event. Now, this is really useful because it allows you to analyse your position in a race situation. It's classic
that riders think they're super aero and their head's really low. But then when they look at the race photo, they see they're actually like this. And they look like they're going to the shops. You know, in our heads, we all look like Remco. In reality, we often don't. The difference between having your head high like this and lower like this is often just a case of knowing that your head is higher and you can hold it lower. So by looking at photos, it can really help. Something else that you can do is when you're on the turbo trainer at home, set up your phone to video yourself side on when you're on the trainer. So this way you can analyze your position and just have a look at what it looks like. As a rule of thumb, try and just make yourself small. And when the course is fastest, when you're holding the fastest speeds, that's when you really have to make more effort to be as aero as possible. So hold your shoulders in tight like this, get your head that little bit lower and just sort of tense in because it will make you faster. And when choosing an aero helmet, if you decide to get one of those, try and get one where the tail of it integrates nicely into your back, as this is usually the most aerodynamic option. And just try and hold the position as best as you can. Now, you don't need a fancy wind tunnel to get faster. You can get 90% of the way there by simply, you know, as I said, videoing yourself while riding the indoor trainer and just analyzing your position and just trying to tweak it and improve it and make sure that the helmet is nicely integrated.
And the last tip, don't self-sabotage. Now, you don't have to have the fanciest bike and equipment in the world, but make the most of what you've got. I'm talking about things like making sure your tyres are pumped up to the correct pressure. Make sure your bike is clean. Just things like the little valve hole cover on a disc wheel, if you've got one of those, tape it up. These little things really do add up. If you get beaten by 1 or 2 seconds by someone else, you're going to be really annoyed that you just didn't pin your number on properly and have it nice and tight rather than flapping around. Just do all the little things because they do really add up. And as long as you've made the most of what you've got, you know that you've done everything that you can. Now, I hope you found these tips useful. Have a go at a time trial if you've not done one before. And if you have done one before, well, I hope these tips help you and make you faster. Let us know in the comments below if you've got any tips that you think we should add, because I might put them in a subsequent video. We love hearing your comments. And, well, hopefully see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.